Morality.
Get me out of the way. Want me to what happened it. Get me out the way. Want me to what happened it. Yeah. Get me out of the way. Want me to what happened it. Get me out the way. Want me to what happened it. Yeah.
Tonight, we take a look at the latest episode of Slow Horses. After that, a comprehensive look at They Called Me Magic, and then we'll conclude with a deep dive into Guild Wars 2. All this coming up right now on The Writer Brothers. And welcome back to your Tuesday night home for general interest movies, games, shows, and books, past, present, and future. I am joined once again by Pollo Zapatos, aka John, my co-producer, and of course Corione, which in residence, our sort of adopted new writer brother. And as you can see, we've kind of managed to dress up the place a little bit. And so with that, why don't we get in? And it's not just the latest episode of Slow Horses we'll be discussing, but of course, the exciting finale. So, John, why don't you go ahead and get us started off on the Slow Horses finale?
Yeah, so we start out with the... honestly, I don't remember exactly how we started out, except for... they're chasing them down the highway. We have the main character River and Gary, right? Gary, forget his name.
Yeah, Gary Oldman's character.
Gary Oldman's
Jackson
character,
Lamb.
and they're
Lamb. Yep.
Lamb, right? So they're driving down. One of the other teams is in another car, and they've run out of gas. But it turns out they're going the wrong direction. And they swiftly go back to the last stop of the terrorists where they were, and we find them trying to chase them down while also watching we switch over and we see the oh man, I am just stumbling all over myself right now.
That's all right. It's all right. Basically, they tracked him down. They managed to save the day, and it was overall, I thought, as far as a finisher went for a first season run, that I was sad to see was only 6 episodes. But hey, you know what? They managed to tell the story. They managed to keep me wrapped in it. I thought it was well done overall. And I would definitely recommend it. To me, I would describe it. I was thinking about it last night while I was watching the show, and I was like, "This is like a This is basically the Other Guys meets 24. This is the Jack Bauer washouts. If Jack Bauer failed, that's kind of what this show kind of felt like. And so I really enjoyed it for that aspect. And honestly, I thought that through and through, Kurion, I think you were saying before the show, you actually decided to go back and rewatch the whole thing?
Yeah, I decided that, as is my kind of tradition when a season ends, I go back and I watch the whole thing so that I can kind of make sure I have that last episode in perspective. And yeah, there are some interesting pieces I hadn't quite picked up that they had been setting up more or less from the get-go that I thought were kind of interesting. Like, for example, we start seeing all the connections with all of these characters. You start realizing that every one of the slow horses, in one way or another, is connected to Diana for why they're actually in the group. And if it isn't Diana that's directly connected, it's Lamb when Lamb was working for Diana. So you really kind of realize that, you know, the Slough House really is like Diana's dumping ground for her own secrets. People that she can't get rid of for fear of those secrets eventually getting out when one of them like figures it out and writes their memoirs. But at the same time also needs them out of the way so she can continue, for lack of a better term, messing up and having, you know, more people that she has to kind of excommunicate from the main group.
Yeah, I found a lot of the twists at the end. I kind of did. I kind of saw the twist coming where Lamb was responsible for the other lady's husband's demise. I kind of figured that was going to be the case. They seem to kind of allude to that being the case, but they definitely showed that there's a lot of corruption involved within MI5, and that you're right. Slow Horses is basically, or Slough House is that, yeah, that's where she sends her problems and hopes that they go away. And it kind of changed my perspective a little bit on how Lamb treats that place. He says, we don't do anything. And it's almost like maybe that's the agreement, is that he basically keeps the washouts under control, keeps her dirty little secrets from getting too involved in stuff, but not to the point where they're just going to remove them from existence altogether. And so it's an interesting relationship between those two, to say the least, to put it nicely, I guess you could say. John, looks like you have a thought?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more to Gary Oldman's like character, especially when it came to Slough House. It didn't feel like he was working out a deal, but more so that he was choosing to take a step back from the more like the actual corruption, like the actual initiation of the false flag event. He didn't want his people to even be a part of it at the end, let alone would he have wanted them at the start. Like, I think with revealing that he had killed the other character's husband, it really showed that it seemed to be like his last day in the actual deep state. And now he was like, I don't want to be a spy and quit being a spy anymore, but I definitely need to stay away from everything that's important. And so I feel like his intention with Slough Horses was actually more of a, we're not going to be the bad guys either. Like, we're just going to do nothing so we can only accidentally do good at the worst case. But it didn't really seem like he was in cahoots with anyone. Like, he really feels like the Slough House is a requirement beyond everybody else to some extent. It's just people know how to use them, and Diane especially. But it also really felt like First Desk when she finally arrived and was like telling Diane, like, they were watching them get ready to shoot the unarmed combatant, and like she seemed like she was 100% in on it. And she kind of like that's why she ended up leaving, was to let Diane do this for a minute, take charge, and if Diane fails, it's Diane's fault. And then Diane's had her back up, even though she was already the backup. Is really what I got. It really felt like there was a bigger world to soon experience.
Well, they make a really great comment. I believe it's in the first episode when he's meeting with his grandfather, and it's something like, when you're in Moscow, you bury you bury your witnesses or whatever, but when you're in London, you cover your butt. And it seemed like everybody was covering their butt to the best of their ability through every means possible to try to avoid getting the stink on them once this all goes down.
Yeah,
I really feel like.
Go ahead.
Go for it, Parker.
No, you talk first. All right.
I was.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I was just gonna say that it really felt like that one quote at the beginning saying that in London you cover your ass. That was the entire theme of the whole show. Was how hard you go to cover yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I did also, like I said, I really liked a lot of the I can't remember the kid's name who was kidnapped. He had some pretty good
Hassan,
lines.
I think it was.
Hassan was his name?
Yeah.
I think you're right, yeah. I should just pull up the IMDb page before the show starts from now on. But anyway, I've done that before. Oh well. I really liked a lot of his lines. Yes, there was the joke that he made, like, there's 1.8 billion Muslims, you're going to need a bigger van. I thought that was funny. But I really liked the line that he gave in this one when he said that, when the Brotherhood guy is like, oh, I'm gonna kill you, and then they're gonna come and shoot me down, and he goes, oh, so you're gonna be a martyr, just like the suicide bombers. I really like that line because it really drives home the point that the difference and the importance of recognizing people as individuals, because he said that in that moment to make a valid point about you're no different than the people you supposedly hate. You're just like them. And he also, himself, Hassan, wants nothing to do with those people either. And that's what he managed to say. He managed to say both of those things in just that one line. And so I really like that because it really brings to light the reality that just because somebody might believe a certain way or act a certain way, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are that extreme person. And so I think the show did a great job of taking extremist ideals and just kind of pushing them to even further and working that into the plot while also working in the whole aspect of the false flag and just all of the intention behind MI5 to try and stage this whole thing to make them look good and justify their budget. And so, but then in the end, the slow horses, the guys that they don't like, that they want to just kind of have to go off into a corner, are the ones that end up stepping up and morally doing the right thing by preventing an unarmed prisoner from getting murdered, essentially. And I mean, even Hassan said, no, he needs to stand trial. He can't just be killed in cold blood like that. I mean, he deserved it, but he was right. He still needed to stand trial. So I think the show hit a lot of marks in a lot of ways. It wasn't afraid to step on toes, but I didn't feel like it did it in a way that some of the other shows that's on, get preachy about it. They just simply told a story, and I think this is a good example of good storytelling overall. No matter where you stand politically, no matter what message you want to put out, this show did a good job of just telling the story it wanted to tell. And so, yes, I continue to recommend this show. It's different, it's dark, but it's absolutely worth it.
I think you said it best at the beginning. It is very much a 24 meets the other guys.
Yeah, exactly. Carry on, you had...
Yeah, I think there were three things that I really noticed on the watch through. One, I think this tells a really good story on why extremism in any form is bad.
Absolutely.
Regardless of where it is, any sort of extremism, any sort of belief without compassion is just never going to work. And it kind of gives you that theme from a lot of different angles. I was also going to say that something that I don't think this show gets a lot of praise for, and it should, is actually the musical accompaniment and the background noise. the audio production on this is actually really good, and it's only something you notice when you're not in the moment of the action, is you realize how much they really did play with, background ambiance and sound, and how good and seamless that sound was. Like, I wouldn't necessarily pick up the soundtrack to this to listen, without the show, but it had so much to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a. I think, and this is just a speculation. I think the music composer started with the opening theme song. It's that Rolling Stones song. I can't remember the title off the top of my head. And I think that they built the soundtrack off of that style. Similarly to how Giacchino did with the Batman, he used a Nirvana song, and it worked. It really, because it really just makes you feel the grittiness of the situation, and I was like, and I also got to give it credit too. It managed to subvert my expectations throughout the entire, except for the ending, which I kind of saw coming, but everything else, this show did not go the way we thought it was going to. And I was even surprised at kind of the way they ended it, where they had the one guy run away in the van, and then he gets gunned down, reaching up to touch his wound because he's in pain. And then, of course, they plant the pistol to cover their ass, as is the theme of this season. And from there, it was just the way the rest of it played out, I thought was actually pretty well thought out overall, and I'm actually looking forward to season 2.
I have good news on that front. It has been 100% confirmed. They've already cast and are preparing to start filming for season 2.
Yeah, I mean the trailer seemed to seem they already had footage to work with. So who knows? Maybe this will be one of those shows that just kind of gives us an off-season kind of off thing, and if it does, great. I mean, I'm actually excited for that premise. Looks like they're going to go MK Ultra this time. So I think that'll be a compelling story to work with on that. I mean, I don't think that's primarily going to be it, but that definitely was the hints I picked up on right away when they were talking about sleeper agents. But what do you guys think? What do you think season 2 is going to bring us?
Well, go for it.
I suspect the season 2 is going to be a more... It feels like they're headed towards cleaning out the rot. Whether it's going to be like they magically clean out the entirety of MI5 and then move on to the CIA is extremely doubtful. But it really felt like through the trailer sequence that they gave us that they were lining up for we're going to clean Diana out. Like the way she used us, we're going to get more on her. And I think that there's going to be a lot of room to see her have done a lot more dirty deeds that we never expected.
Yeah. So you think it's going to be a bit of a revenge story in the process too?
To an extent, I don't necessarily believe that it'll be revenge for this one act. I think it's going to be more like just retribution. So
Okay.
They're going to be compiling a case to get her kicked out. And that's what we're going to see a lot of, is either them getting the data or reviewing and what for us will be a flashback of the data or event. That's, I think, what we're going to get more from season 2. Based off just the way the show was headed in my head.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there is also a book for us to check out in between, so we can definitely do a book v show comparison in the future. I definitely would like to. I mean, that's part of what we like to promote on this show is more books. But yeah, I think they did a lot of things right with this show, and Lamb makes sense to me now. His jaded perspective, I get it. He's had a lot of people die, and that's basically why he's just so detached, and that's how he chooses to see things and process things. And so it's like, okay, I'm a little less critical of his methods of saying that you all suck. And I really like how Cartwright finished his sentence that last time when he's like, yeah, I know, but we're all shit, and she was less shit, or something like that. It was funny. And that's just it. It really shows, I think, good writing capability when you can do a show as serious as Slow Horses and then have the ability to inject humor the way that they did throughout the series, and those some of those off moments that I really liked it. So I'm definitely going to watch season 2, and we'll definitely cover it. But does anyone have any final thoughts, any final discussions for the for season 2 of season 1 of Slow Horses?
Well, I just feel like I'm really hoping the next season gets more episodes, because I feel like this is a series that deserves the old standard of like 62 or 52 episodes a season, because
Right.
man, this thing is fantastic.
Yeah, no, it like I said, it subverted expectations, but also managed to stay on what it was trying to do, and so it's definitely worth checking out again. Probably, I mean, seeing as it's only 6 episodes, and that's the other thing too. I think we talked about this last week with the fact that shows are so serialized, and it's kind of hard to want to sit down and commit to a 10, 15 episode serial, right? Well, this show is only 6 episodes, and so that would definitely be a little easier for me to go back and do. But with that, I think we've pretty much covered. Unless, John, do you have any final thoughts on Slow Horses?
No, definitely would recommend though. For
Yeah,
sure.
and that's
It's
how you know a show's
show.
good too.
Really fun.
Oh, sorry, cut you off.
Oh, yeah. Just one more thing to add, I guess. Well, I would say I recommend it because even though it is a very much version of the Other Guys Meets 24, it's not the same, like the big bad. It's not a whodunit thriller. Surprisingly, you start to know who's the bad guys and who the good guys are right away, but you realize that like it's a human chaos event, and it's really fun to like listen to all the different parts of that, and the show does a really good job of showing you how much is really going on versus what the world's actually seeing, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's probably the mark of a good show, too, is one where we're not ripping it apart constantly. But who knows? Next week, for the first time in this show's history, we might not have an Apple product to discuss. So I'm a little scared. We'll see. Next up is the Magic Johnson documentary on Apple TV. I thought this was just a couple hours. It would go through, show us about how his contribution to the sport was absolutely, I mean, in a lot of ways, it was necessary to save the sport. But even just 2 episodes in, I am blown away by this story in so many ways. For one, there's the raw aspect of it, the fact that they aren't trying to dress this up as, oh, magic is so great. Yes, that's a part of it, and for a lot of good reason. It's well earned. The man has had some natural talent that he used and really helped change the sport. But there's so much more about it with the historical context wrapped up that I was not even aware of. I mean, I didn't actually know anything about this going in. I mean, everyone's heard of Magic Johnson, but do you actually know Magic Johnson? And I'm not a fan of basketball personally. However, I do like a good documentary. And I think that a good sports documentary is one that can get me interested in the sport, or at least connect with it. And that's what I feel this one does a very good job of, is it allows non-basketball fans like myself to connect with that aspect of our culture. Like I can understand now, watching that, I can understand the excitement. I can appreciate the fandom behind sports, because I mean, sports and entertainment shows like what we watch and sci-fi, for example, they're really not that different. They're both a sort of passion. They're an interest, and so I absolutely love this so far. However, I'm not the only one here to discuss it. So who wants to take it next?
Oh, I'll go. To me, again, I'm not a huge basketball fan. I don't really follow it much at all. That being said, I mean, I knew about Magic Johnson from the controversies that sprung up when I was a kid. And so, I was naturally interested in this. And, when you learn a lot about him, you start to realize how very, very human he is, and how, because of so much of his life being wrapped up in the sport, how many other aspects of his life suffered because of it. One of the things that really blew me away was in the documentary, it talks about, well, he grew up in a smaller Michigan town. He didn't have to travel that far every day. Like, he never really had to go more than an hour out of his home for anything, because it was all kind of there. And then when he gets drafted by LA and he's suddenly in a huge megapolis, he really only wants to stay in his little 2-bedroom apartment because, in a lot of ways, you feel like he's a little afraid to go out there and be out there in this big city when he's still used to being this kid from a small town, because in a lot of ways, in his rookie year and the year after, he was still a kid, from a small town being, paid to play a game. I thought that was fascinating. I thought the whole situations with Cookie, which was his significant other, and the on-again, off-again relationship they had, man, I never thought I'd go into this and be like, wow, this Magic Johnson thing is cool, but boy, do I really feel for that woman who had to deal with all the eccentricities that he brought to the table when she's just interested in settling down and having a couple of kids with
Right.
the person that she fell in love with in, like, high school.
Yeah, I really like the humanization of Magic, and I really like, and they say it very early on. There's Magic Johnson and there's Irving Johnson, and they're two different people in a lot of ways, and that makes sense, because when he was Magic and he was out there on the court, he's putting on a show. He's not just playing the sport, he's also trying to help generate fan interest and get people excited. And so I had no idea about any of the history of this. And so I was very just blown away by everything that's been presented so far. So I absolutely, like I said, I lost my train of thought for a second. It really is a good documentary. And what I love about it is this gives an opportunity for people who might not want to get into sports or the history of sports, a chance to actually enjoy, like I said, connecting in this way. We do have some comments in the chat from our friends at Super Gamecraft. Gross, Guild Wars 2, don't worry, it's not on yet. Oh, a show about Magic Johnson, neat. If you guys like this, check out The Last Dance about Michael Jordan, very similar vibes. Okay, cool. Yeah, we definitely will look into that. I mean, we don't necessarily have to keep everything current, and actually I think we're a couple weeks behind with Magic Johnson. But yes, Super Gamecraft, you guys are still watching. This one is absolutely worth it. It's a 4-part series. I only got through the first 2 episodes myself. But John, you did get through all of it. So why don't you go ahead and take a few minutes to explain it?
Yeah. So I went to this one completely confused why we had decided to do it as a topic. I'm very far removed from basketball and really just any sports in general. I don't keep up with any of the stats. It's hard. So I went into this one kind of sluggish in terms of like wanting to watch it. So I watched it all this morning. And the first 2 episodes, they talk about a man and his growth and career and love of a sport and his desire to win. And it was really powerful in terms of drive and discipline and his devotion to be able to achieve. But when the next two episodes come out and they describe his post-career, post-retirement from the Lakers and the NBA, and the wild ride of a life that he went through, and the way that he took it in stride. It blew me away. At the first episodes, I was like, okay, cool, another, all-star being an all-star, and obviously they're gonna say like all-star things that made them to be an all-star. But it was really crazy to see that his mindset only changed direction, not power. Like when his fight became a fight against disease, he put just as much, if not more, effort into fighting to, one, kill it himself, and two, kill the stigma around it. And he put a ton of effort into proving the world wrong, even though, I mean, a lot of people, especially in his community, they were all cheering for him. They wanted him to fight. So the world that he was proving wrong was more just that personal fight against death. And he's done so much as as somebody who's like brought a lot of attention to the AIDS and HIV pandemic, but also one who's done a lot for South Compton and Compton as a whole in LA, because that's his home. And he actually, he took up the honor of building his home and taking care of his home. And the show really showed me what a baller can do after being a baller, and how they can still actually contribute and change the world that they live in, even if they can't do the thing that they love every day anymore. And damn, did Magic Johnson do that. It was awesome.
Wow. Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited to check out the rest of this, probably maybe tonight or over the next couple days. I really like they definitely jump around a lot in his life, which I think kind of helps keep you interested, keeps you into the story, bouncing around on the timeline. I really like the origin of his name. And I did not know that he had gotten it so early on in life. I thought that was really special, the way that he and the reporter connected, and he's like, I'm going to call you Magic, and he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then the next thing you know, he's being called Magic now. And so it was very cool getting all these different aspects of his life, the disagreement with the coach and how that kind of blew up in his face over it, but it was... it just wasn't working for those two, and so the new coach had to step in, and then they worked fine together until he had to move on to other things. And so it's really just, like I said, it does a good job of keeping things easy for the viewer, especially if you're not familiar with basketball. If you're not familiar with basketball, I highly recommend this, because you understand how things are going. They explain stuff enough without having to know the rules of basketball to at least appreciate the struggle that the Los Angeles Lakers went through when they first signed Magic Johnson. They were not the team that we're used to seeing nowadays. That was in part built up because of Magic Johnson. And so it's very fascinating to get that cultural history through all of it, and then getting everybody else's perspective too was nice. I did not know Snoop Dogg's tattoo was because of the championship, but I thought that was really cool. And he not only just wears the tattoo, he even has a replica of it that he wears as a keychain sometimes, or as a necklace sometimes, or I don't remember how he said he wears it now that I think about it. But it's yes, absolutely worth the time. I mean, I honestly lost track of time because that's how good it kept me into what was going on. And so from a writing perspective, this was well pieced together. This was absolutely, narratively, this works. It's a good story. So yeah, carry on. Any other deep dive thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, how many non-political documentaries can you remember that have two former U.S. presidents that were interviewed for them?
Right.
That's
right?
wild. I didn't even think about that.
But I mean, now that you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, right? And when you think about it that way, that should tell you at the very least how much of an impact this guy had on so many different people from different walks of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that's honestly what I liked a lot too, was learning that he seemed to respect his fame to an extent. I mean, there was probably, I mean, it would happen to any of us. We achieve maximum fame the way that he did over something we love doing. Like, one of the reasons why I'm okay with this show being where it's at right now is because we don't have to put on any, and we're not ever going to change our formula here too much to attract viewers. I mean, we'll play the algorithm games and whatnot, but I mean, we're still going to be our show. However,
I mean, if we had the opportunity to have the Laker girls do an intermission for us, I mean, I wouldn't say no.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if we go to 3 hours, we're kind of going to need something like that. It'll probably just have to be us to start, but we gotta.
I don't know if I have the hips for that, but we can try.
Well, it definitely would bring in viewers. So maybe not necessarily. It'd bring in people, in its own special way. But yeah, I didn't even know about any of that. Like, I didn't realize that was all part of putting on, Showtime. I mean, the whole aspect between, like I said, it's so much more than just a game to him. It's a lifestyle. It's performance art in the process. Like, there's so much that was going on with how they wanted to bring the Lakers to where they are now, that I had no idea. I didn't know anything about it. However, now I do, thanks to how well researched this was, and everybody that contributed their thoughts and whatnot. It's and I didn't even know about the rivalry with Larry Bird. I heard about Larry Bird, that he was also a great basketball player, but I really loved that there was that they first started out. I mean, that in of itself is the kind of thing that you could make a biopic about, is the rivalry between Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. And that's what I felt this kind of inadvertently did in the process too, because they started playing together and they actually played like seamlessly together, which was amazing. But then they went back, to their real life, and then they were on opposite teams for the rest of their careers. And so it's like, first, it's really that kind of that tragic hero's story where two great legends that started out as friends, but that's just it. Magic didn't just have that with Larry Bird; he had that with the other guy on the Pistons as well. And those two had their friendship fall apart. I mean, there's so much that even just in those 2 episodes that was going on, that I've been blown away. And yeah, you're totally right, Carry On. There's nothing political about this documentary at all. It's just showcasing his life and the history behind it. And I didn't feel like it was preachy at any point. I have nothing but good things to say about this documentary. And so, yeah. John, do you have any other thoughts?
No, I definitely think you hit it all on the head. Carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for. Like you, PD, I only got through the first 2, the first 2 parts of it. I'm looking forward to sitting down and watching the rest. Although I think I'm going to try to drag in some friends and whatnot who's the closest connection they have to sports is maybe watching A League of Their Own a couple of times. So I'm going to see if I can drag them into this, because it is such a fascinating discussion about this man's life.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I mean it really is. It really is something special, and I hope we can see more of this, because I actually have more respect for Magic Johnson than I thought I would have when they're talking about him, the on and off relationship with Cookie Johnson. It's not something that I would do personally. However, the fact that they were so open about it, and the fact that this documentary is it's so real, really is what sets it apart from a lot of others. You know, you watch a sports documentary, it's usually, oh, you know, remember the Miracle on Ice and how great the Miracle on Ice was, and you know, all these players, they came together and they won a game against Russia. Well, why don't we do like a Miracle on Ice series that we get, you know, a little more backstory into the people so we can relate to them more. Yeah, and I felt Magic Johnson is now more relatable as a human. He's not just some big basketball star or former basketball star. He's an actual person who went through real person issues. But I also gotta say too, I really like how he was kind of like his own sort of version of Ted Lasso before there was a fictional character named Ted Lasso. You know, he's smiling all the time. He's in a good mood. He's taken just about everything he can in stride. And he really set the example. He really is a good role model even to this day. And I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the stuff that gets into it. I mean, John, is there anything else in the next couple episodes that really stuck out that you'd want to add to what you said earlier?
Yeah. I would honestly say one of the biggest things that really hit me about the documentary is the way it was filmed. It really felt like Magic Johnson wasn't in charge of the filming, and his family was a lot more open than I've seen a lot of other documentaries of families be. They took a lot of time to really like talk about their feelings and the way it felt growing up with the man, rather than, you know, just being like, oh yeah, our dad was it was great. Instead, it really took the time to like get to know the children, even though it was brief time. Because the documentary is about Magic Johnson, it wasn't about his children, but it did explain a lot in terms of a timeline. Cookie explains it the best, is how their children grow up. But at the same time, each of their kids like described the feelings, and that felt rare, but also very open. And it felt also like Magic Johnson may have been hearing some of that stuff for the first time as well. And it really felt like he was, throughout the whole documentary, becoming a more open person. Because it felt like he heard everybody else give their feelings, and then he started giving his feelings. And that felt really human. Like, he doesn't get mushy by any sense, but he definitely gets more of a... It felt more like he was willing to just tell you how he felt. And he really didn't hide behind nice words about it, but he also didn't, like, suddenly break down. Like, it really just felt like he's like, well, yeah, I was also, like, having a hard time trying to change my opinions about certain things. And you're like, oh, right, people do struggle to change. It's one of the hardest things that we do every day. And it really felt like he took a lot of time to be better, even throughout just his presentation in the documentary. Anytime he was discussing his part in the actions in the story, he seemed to grow with the actual filming of the series, and it was really cool to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like this was sort of inadvertently an introspection for him to look back at moments of his life, but more in depth, while also hearing the opinions of other people.
Yeah,
that's
a perfect way to sum it up.
Yeah, and I mean, it just adds to why this is such a great piece of work, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what the other Apple documentaries bring us. Because this is good in more ways than I was expecting. You know, I went into this thinking, you know, yeah, it'll be a sports documentary, but it'll kind of be an eye-opener. You'll learn a few things, and, you know, I honestly thought this was just going to be a quick little 20-minute blurb. But I can't praise this production enough, because it's such a good, solid, deep dive into Magic Johnson's life, and that's why I wanted to put more time to it, because it is not. I can understand being hesitant about committing 4 hours to a series like this. And that's why I like that it's broken up into 1 hour blocks, because we can have, you can have breaks. You don't have to watch it all at once. I mean, it definitely tries to hook you and keep you going and wanting to come back for more. However, it does a good job of also, say like, hey, it's okay if you need to take a break. Like, I'm not too worried about getting to those last 2 episodes, because I will watch them. This is worth watching. And this is why I want to see more sports documentaries, like, or at least ones that are well researched and actually give you all of the information. This isn't a puff piece about Magic Johnson. This isn't trying to make him out to be something he's not. We're getting to see that, but we're also getting to see the other things that made him who he is. And it's really nice. It's refreshing, because it's not a deconstruction in the way that some of the pop culture has taken fictional characters and has really torn them apart. It really is just a thorough examination of this man's life. And again, I gotta commend him even more for going this far, because this is a lot of this stuff is very personal, and he's not afraid to share it. And I think that's, again, he was inspiring to watch on the court. Now we can go a step further and say that he's inspiring just as a person, just as a man, to be inspired by his transparency and his I guess you could say his secure position where he's at in life. Korean. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just had one thing to add. I finally realized the compare and contrast. If you're into serial killer documentaries, the first 2 episodes really do feel like you're building up to, and then he became ... And it still flows in that same story, but it takes you down a completely different journey that has just as satisfying of an ending. But the way you were just describing it in the segments of each episode, it really feels like we're watching his childhood, his prime, and then what's supposed to be his fall, and it turns out he glides back up. And it's really impressive and powerful in the movie, or in the series itself, but also I just thought that was the best way to describe the flow. The first 2 episodes will build like a serial killer, but that and then moment, and you see somebody go good and not evil for once. It's pretty great.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I totally agree. Carry on. Any other thoughts on the They Call Me Magic documentary? Your sound is offline. So we'll carry on, gets that figured out. I gotta say too, Apple is really bringing the pain when it comes to the quality of shows. Oh, I guess it's gonna reinitialize, so that works. I mean, this we have between this show and between Severance and Slow Horses and Foundation. John, I think you said Tehran. Did you actually watch that one yet, or?
I did. I watched a few episodes. It's there's so many subtitles. It's so hard. It's mostly supposed to be in Iran, and I did not realize that when I started it, so I'm gonna have to restart it. But
we might be able to.
It's another 24 style, but this one's way darker and way weirder. Even though I didn't know what anyone was saying, so I still have no idea what's actually going on, I know something crazy's going on, because I watched like 6 episodes before I finally gave up.
Well, we'll definitely look into that, and we'll also be probably looking into other. Mythic Quest. I finally got Hannah to start watching Mythic Quest, and yeah, that's another great show that I really like. I didn't notice it the first time I watched that one, but that one really does a good job of creating its own universe. Anyway, carry on.
Despite using Ubisoft's universes.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed and For Honor. I saw them first second.
Oh, that's right. They did have some plugs for that.
Oh, all of the scenes in season 1, all video game scenes are, except for whatever they used to show the shovel scene. It's Assassin's Creed and For Honor.
Oh, so that's what they used for their in-game footage?
Yeah, and in the second one they use more.
Muted him. Oh, there it goes again.
I think they use different footage. I noticed that the end of season 1, that one's definitely a different generator or a different engine, but not the first two. It's actually, I think Montreal Ubisoft is the one that it's modeled after, the group that they described that they're talking to. Montreal.
Oh, there. I heard you agree with John
Ubisoft.
that time.
Yeah. Sorry
All
about
right,
that.
and we're back.
Had to beat my computer into submission here.
Sometimes you just gotta, I don't know how you'd beat a computer into submission. Maybe with an electric whip.
I'm old school. I just take it out back behind the woodshed.
Anyway, any more thoughts for They Call Me Magic? Or just Magic Johnson in general, really?
Honestly, I would just really encourage people who would not normally check something out like this to give it a shot. If the first part of it, which is really only about an hour, doesn't hook you for the rest of it, there's nothing I can say that will. Check it out. It's worth at least an hour of your time, if not for the whole series.
If you're only going to give it an hour, though, start at episode 3. Because that's where the story takes off into a more human and whole human. Because it is the man after the game. And that man deserves the recognition.
So
he did a lot.
So what you're saying then is, like, for the fans of Magic Johnson who already know all the stuff that happens in the first couple of episodes,
they can also jump ahead and see what he became afterwards.
Yeah, and go ahead.
See, I don't know. To me, the most amazing part of this was how human, how much of... Dude, it's a teenager who got his dream of playing professional basketball came together that really intrigued me about the whole thing. By making him that human in the first little bit, it sold me on the rest. So
that's weird. I felt like it's not that he did have this story of extreme luck, but it seemed very 1 in a million, and that part disconnected me personally. Just that idea of, like, what are the odds? And to me, that's why I say it's like the next half of his life are like, what are the odds this is the kind of person you would become despite, like, getting the worst diagnosis of the time of your life, like, in a row, and for him to become a bigger and better person instead of a weaker, tireder person, it blew my mind. It changed everything about him, and that's what this documentary did. Is because you are right. His story in the beginning is also like, wow, that happened to a person. That could happen to anybody. But the next part is like, that's the worst thing that could happen to a person, and also the best possible result despite it. So you might have to end up watching all 4 hours if you really want to have a good time.
Yeah, well, and I think too, it's... I literally just had a thought. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Oh well, audio problems, thoughts being lost. Well, and I think so too. Oh, that's right. You were talking about that you felt disconnected because it's a 1 in a million chance for him to have succeeded that way. I don't agree. I think when it comes to situations where someone who's like a famous actor, for example, they appear on a bunch of movies, and they get, depending on who their agent is, they get all the best jobs, they get promoted, and the next thing you know, they're a big star that's signing $1 million deals and whatnot. But at the end of the day, while I can respect the craft of acting, it's all fake. This is not fake. This is all real life. And he earned it. All of it. Yes, Curione, you're right. He got the dream. He scored the dream at a very young age, 19 years old, and he's already playing in the majors. That is not a small accomplishment in life, in any profession. That is huge. However, it wasn't because someone came along and was like, I'm going to make that guy a really good basketball player. He's going to be everywhere. He's going to be Magic. The only person who did that was a small town reporter for a newspaper. He's the guy who coined the phrase. And so it's I felt that everything that he got in life up to the point that I've seen in the 2 episodes, he earned it. He worked for it. He had a natural talent for the game.
That's not the part that I felt that was disconnected. To me, more about the part that I say that felt disconnected is that he was one of the few people that would get the chance to perform in front of a reporter and also be capable. It's not that he's 1 in a million chance in terms of like, oh, he just got lucky. I mean more in terms of like, 1, he had the time to get good and he practiced and he devoted himself to the love of the game. But then 2, it just happened that the reporter got called to his second game. Because his first game, the reporter said, I watched a high school game. Thanks. But the second game was where he like stepped it up and played his heart out, not even knowing that the reporter was even there for the second game. Just him getting a better chance and a better show, and his team played better that night, and suddenly the reporter was like, well, I saw these 2 games, and in a week difference, this one kid changed the game. So yes, he definitely
so you're talking about the
earned
specific
everything.
circumstance.
I'm saying that situation felt 1 in a million.
Well,
Especially by today's standards.
go ahead,
Like, there's
Curione.
just more high schools and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was also gonna say that one of the things that also interested me was that his dad played, and apparently played quite well. And when he eventually said, "Hey, Dad, like why didn't you try to take a shot at this?" He's like, "I had a family. I had, I had people I had to take care of, and I had to put that dream aside. So I was so happy that you got a chance to chase that dream." And that was a huge moment for me too, because I'm sitting there going like, that is a dad that, was more than happy to sacrifice so that his kids could succeed. That speaks a lot too, to a very deep part of what all was going on here.
yeah, and it wasn't just Magic was the baby of the family. Of like, how many siblings did he say in total? Because
I think it was like 5.
I think yeah. 6. Oh, closer to 9. Which
Oh wow.
yeah, I think it was like 6 sisters and 3 brothers was the total there, and it's like, huh? I don't know if someone wants to check it real quick. But the point is, it was a big family. It was not your average, United States American dream, 2.5 children family. It was a family. Like, so he wasn't just putting his career aside for like 1 or 2 spoiled kids. He had to do it because they had a whole pack. They were a family, is what I'm trying to say. A big family. Which what families used to be back in the day. But so he wasn't just
6 siblings and 3 half siblings.
3 half siblings. Okay. But he wasn't
So
just
90.
giving up his dream he wasn't just giving up his dream just for Magic. He was giving up his dream for all of the siblings. And yet, like, how cool is that? And not only, I mean, you make a very good point, Curione. It really speaks to his dad's character about his response was he was happy for him. He didn't try to run his dream. He didn't try to live vicariously through him. He was like, oh, my son's in the NBA. Awesome. I mean, that's how it came off to me anyway. Maybe there's probably more depth there. However, it was so, but that's really awesome that's the kind of relationship he got to have with his dad. He didn't have a helicopter parent. He had a dad who was like, yeah, do it, go. And he looked up to his dad. His dad was his hero. And he was also his motivation. And so, yes, I really like that father-son dynamic where oh, I'm given this opportunity to do what Dad couldn't, but not only do I get to do what Dad couldn't, Dad supports what I can do. And so that's, man, what an amazing, an amazing production, but what an amazing story. I mean, this really is more than just a basketball documentary. It's more than even just a documentary about Magic Johnson. There's the historical implications with the NBA and trying to get the show. There's so much to unpack with this one, and it's all good. It's all good stuff to unpack. Like, I wasn't bored watching this. I wasn't like, oh, I'm doing sports because I feel I have to. No, I wanted to watch this. I was curious, and this is like one of those times where you're digging in a cornfield and you struck oil.
Yep.
And that's what I would say. But yes, John, back to what you're saying about the right place at the right time. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like he literally, fate gave him a second chance in that instance. Like, there's no amount of variables. What variables and circumstances? Because he even says that the reporter even says that I was told to go check out his second game, and so I did. And wow, I was blown away. It was like, but the pressure was off.
Right, well, so like that's what I mean. Is I don't want to denigrate his effort. Even when he was a child, he was putting in work. What I just meant to say is that the part about his work paying off at 15, and the fact that like it paid off in such a way that it carried him to be an NBA star at 19, that's where I was like, oh, if only that had happened, and that's where the fiction, in terms of like, there's no way I could ever imagine to relate like that. Like, I'm not 6'5". I wish, but I'll never be 6'5". And so that level of just rocketing to success, it's not so much that it's unbelievable. It's just that it's like, okay, that's a whole different story. And then it was like, obviously, like, to me, the big turnoff was just the basketball part. Like, because the part where you say the acting versus basketball, earning it versus, earning it. And I think there is a difference between acting and basketball in terms of like physical devotion in some cases. Unless you look at like Tom Cruise, because he does most of his own stunts for no reason. But the acting is in its own way, it's an intellectual effort where you have to study up on a fake character and then make that character seem real. And some are very, very bad at it, and some are very good at it. And I think that equates is that Magic Johnson, the series into 3 and 4, episodes 3 and 4, they go into show how Magic Johnson, like, he tried to start a night show, and his night show bombed so bad. And it bombed because, and it's even like Magic Johnson explains it, he's just like, you have to eat, sleep, and dream about being on the Tonight Show and hosting the Tonight Show to be even good at hosting it, let alone earn it. And I kind of just walked in there and I was not ready to devote myself to it. And that, I think, is really what goes to show his true character, is that, like, he thinks that skill is skill. Just some people devote all of their skill points to basketball, and that's what he did. And then that's where he started to learn to be better at devoting himself to other things. And the show really goes on to show how he did it, and it's really cool.
Right. Well, and my point with the actors thing is there's good actors and there's bad actors, and you can still give an award-winning performance on screen and still be a bad actor, in the sense that it's just a job. You don't take it to heart. You don't. The entertainment industry can be utilized to create lots of illusions. I mean, we're creating some right now with the way I present this show. There's good ways to do it, then there's bad ways to do it. And the issue that the point that I was trying to make is there's no illusion when it comes to sports. That is one of the jobs that you could argue is like any other kind of physical trade. If you don't have the prowess for it, You know, I can't grab a ball and just go be an NBA All-Star. That's not within me.
That's certainly
I can,
fair.
however, learn how to pretend to be somebody else.
You could act.
Exactly.
I
I
do it
don't
for
want
half
to.
an hour.
Carry on.
Well,
Please disagree.
okay. Yeah, I was gonna say that, like, I think with anything, when it comes to acting, I feel like acting is a craft as opposed to a skill, right? Where anyone can pick up a craft, but there are some people that have natural talents for said craft and will excel. For example, I would argue that there are some absolutely incredible Shakespearean actors that even if you practice your entire life at the craft of acting, you will never hit the skill level of. Same goes with sports, right? Same goes with anything. Like, I can dribble a ball, I can shoot a ball, I can, charge down the court with a ball. I will never play at Magic Johnson's level, right? Conversely, though, we all have our talents, we all have our skills, we all have our, our things that we literally put, our skill points into. And we get those because we're passionate about it, because we found it, and because we're willing to put in the time and effort. And what I would say is, yeah, I could probably become a mediocre actor if I was willing to put in the time. But I don't have that skill level, right? Somebody along the lines of, like an Ian McKellen, has that natural talent, but then has worked on his craft. He loves his stagecraft. And it comes across when you see him in something that his characters are very believable. He's not just walking through those lines. He's living the character and spouting out those lines because that's what the character should be saying. And he makes you believe that. So, I mean, yeah, there are mediocre actors and there are amazing actors. And I feel it's the same way with anybody who's playing ball. Any sport really, right? There are people that can play the sport, and then there are the people that hit those heights. And yes, modern day, there are ways to cover up for not as great actors, CG and various ways to cut, but that if anything speaks to this trade craft of the director and the editors, right? Yep. That they're able to cover for somebody like that. So I don't know. I feel like any craft, any skill like that, there's some people that have a certain natural talent for it, and then there are people that are just amazing at it. The way I like to explain it is, I can play a couple of musical instruments. I can play the flute, the ocarina, a couple of things like that. But I need sheet music in front of me. I need a metronome to get my timing down before I start playing. And then I can play what's put in front of me. My sister-in-law can pick up any musical instrument, take 3 seconds to look at a piece of music, or even just listen to it once, and play it so beautifully it would make your eyes tear up. And it's because that's where her talent is. That's just what she's good at. And I feel like it's kind of the same thing with acting. I feel like it's the same thing with any sport.
Yeah, and that's, to tie this into Magic's story, he wasn't just good at basketball. I mean, we touched on it earlier. They also put on a performance. He took it to another level because he wasn't just doing cool stuff as a player and making shots. He was on the court putting on a show. And that was part of what made the Lakers so famous in the long run, was they took the sport and they had fun with it. But he did it so seamlessly. Like, it wasn't, he wasn't reading a script and trying to learn lines and, I'm gonna, oh man, the thing that really impresses me about players like Magic Johnson and anybody who does this is when they're jumping through the air and they're like faking where they're gonna throw the ball into the hoop for those brief few seconds, and they do the quick little thing. That is like, I know it's a tactic on the court, but it's also really cool to just see them do it, because I can't do it, obviously. I can't imagine how like the timing that you get to just move your arms through the air, because you're not even pushing off anything. You're mid-air. You're fighting against gravity to push the ball up this way. Oh no, I'm gonna go this way and then I'm gonna score. But that's just one aspect of it. He was doing other stuff where he's not looking and he's throwing the ball to he's looking one direction and he's fake passing to the other. And there's so much more to that than just being able to do the fundamentals. And I think that's really why I respect him and respect why, he got. That's why I say that what he got was earned. And I think what I'm really trying to say is it was earned by just him being himself. He wasn't promoted so much. I mean, yes, he got those bits in the newspaper that definitely helped build his persona, but there wasn't.
He had to keep earning them. Like,
right.
They weren't going to keep writing about him if that was the last game that he exploded on.
Exactly.
He had to keep doing, like, and that's the thing, especially about media, is you can't just keep writing the same story. You can't keep having the same shutout day in and day out. Instead, he was going up and up and up until he left. Right? Until he went and joined the NBA, he was doing better every day. And he very much deserves the title of the GOAT. But he also, like, to me, that's why I keep, like, going back to the second episodes. It's like, when you become a GOAT, what next? And so many GOATs that do exist even today have never gone to what's next. They stop. And what Magic Johnson did next, it blew my mind. His willingness to not only take care of his family, but to take care of his community, to continue to grow his family despite all of the things that were preventing him from being able to start the grow the family he wanted. And even just his family's reaction to his life. Like, his kids seemed a lot more human than I would expect children of somebody like Magic Johnson. Like, we mostly think of dysfunctional rich kids, but instead we have 3 very, very human children that have very good groundings in their lives. And it's unbelievable, their relationships with themselves and their father. And that's what I mean by the next half is the best half. Is he's still alive, and he's got more to come. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, and this again, it just makes me excited to watch the last 2 episodes, because I already liked what I had seen so far, and I just I'm gonna repeat myself a little bit, but again, we got the history of not only the man, but the sport, the team, the LA Lakers. We got to get the opinions of getting that perspective from the other players. I think that was huge, because they all kind of have their own little their own kind of perspective on him that's really cool. But even then, we kind of got a little bit of personality from those players too. It wasn't just Magic Johnson's show. It was
Kareem Abdul. Yeah,
Kareem's story about how his dad rode on the bus with him because that's what he needed at the time, and how, like, the coaches were like, yeah, okay. Like, it's really cool to see that people were being human and caring about each other in an era where it felt like the workplace is a place of business, not a place for feelings, which I kind of agree. But at the same time, we can't give up what makes us human, and we can't be expected to just turn that on and off when it's convenient for the boss. And so I think it was really cool to see.
100%, you're always gonna get feelings, because feelings are a part of that 100%.
It's part of our existence, and so it was really cool. I think what I really liked was that, especially between the relationship between Magic and the owner of the Lakers, just how they not only hit it off, but it was kind of like an additional father-son relationship, but sort of like they maintained their professionalism, but they also were friends. And so it was really cool to see the way they interacted, and how there was no, honestly, I felt like I would have been happy to be a part of that team. And that's what I kind of felt like I got out of watching this documentary, was not only was I getting to see, to meet somebody who is a hero and a role model in a lot of people's lives, and rightly so. Even with all the mistakes he made, this man is still a man worth keeping as your hero. And that's honestly what I think I respect about him, and what I respect about this documentary. Like I said, I got to not only feel the fan connection for Lakers fans, longtime Lakers fans, but I also got to just feel like what it was like to kind of be a part of that team. And, you know, even if I was a mediocre ball player, which I wouldn't even be able to be that good, I still would have been happy to play on a team like that and work with a bunch of guys that obviously care about each other. But they also, you know, they did take things a little too far with the Celtics. I mean, it almost turned into a brawl, and that was like, that's how tense things were with that game, and it was really interesting to watch people take sides over arbitrary bullshit. But look at the end result. I mean, this is what I love about sports. I'm not super into sports. I like the smaller leagues. I like college football over NFL personally. I don't watch basketball, but I do like that it has the intensity of football mixed with the elegance of baseball. But I really love the camaraderie that you don't only get on the team, but the sportsmanship that can come out of rivalries. And when you get things like, you know, like those Miracle on Ice moments at the Olympics, for example, or even just in the United States or Korea, I'm sure you've probably got hockey fans up in your region.
Oh, one or two.
Yeah. I love how the stereotype is always true when it comes to hockey with Canada. But that's what's awesome about it, though, right? It's the passion. It's the fact that, you know, we can pretend to hate each other on the court. We can pretend to hate each other during the game. But then afterwards, it's like, it's a love of the sport. And that's what brings us together as people, is that, yes, we can take sides and we can have teams over sports and we can root for these professional athletes. But we can do so in a way that's not malicious. Yes, some fans take things too far. That's something that we can work on as you know, as people, as a society, as a collective whole. We're getting better with it. But I would rather have to work with that problem and be excited for sports teams than, you know, other horrible stuff that goes on around the rest of the world. And so I think that's what I really like about sports as a whole. I'm not a huge fan of the national stuff personally. I think there's too much corruption. I think there's too much you're kind of more so rooting for a logo these days. I think we need to try and kind of get things more back to team loyalty. However, like I said, I have a better understanding of the NBA as a whole. I have a better understanding of the Los Angeles Lakers. I feel like I can actually talk to a Lakers fan for 5 minutes and not, you know, not know what I'm talking about. And that's what's cool about this documentary. And so, Magic Johnson, if you somehow happen to see our tiny little show, I'd love to sit down and have a beer with you someday, if that's even possible. But I also won't stand in the way of your more longtime fans who are more deserving of your time. And so thank you for being transparent about this. Thank you for sharing your life to this extent. And you know, well done by everybody on this production. Did a great job. I don't have a round of applause button, but I would definitely give it to them. This production is, yes, soft golf clap for everybody.
Well, I was giving a round of applause.
Yeah, I love when the metaphor is taken literally. Thank you, Drax. Any final thoughts, guys, before we transition to our final segment of the night?
Oh, I think I'm good.
Yeah, that summed me up.
Okay, well, with that, we are going to move over to something that I have been playing quite a bit. I actually did a very late night casual filth for it, and it was actually a lot of fun. I actually got a player last night, a diehard fan of this game. And if you've been watching the stream, you'll notice that we are now going to move to... Oh, forgot to turn one thing off. To discussing Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 is an MMO, massive multiplayer online role-playing game. It was released in August of 2012, so they'll be hitting their 10-year anniversary this year, which is a huge deal for any game that has been around that long. And I, for the first time, am embarking into this world. And I gotta say, I could do a whole show on this game. So any questions you guys have that as we come up, as I start to rave and rant, please don't hesitate to ask, and we'll get into it. So Guild Wars 2, it takes place after the first Guild Wars game, and if you know anything about that, then you know more than I do, because I never played the first Guild Wars game. I'm very much a noob when it comes to the lore and the history of this game, so there was nothing for me to really get excited about. The reason I play Star Trek Online a lot is because I love Star Trek. You know, who would have thought? I got into Star Wars The Old Republic because I loved KOTOR, and when I was playing KOTOR, I was like, you know what would be really cool is if we had an MMO like this, and hey, there it was. Also, SWTOR did a very good job of bringing you in the story, making it immersive. So, I never really had a reason or a motivation to get into this game in particular. Looking at it at first glance, I thought, it's just World of Warcraft, which I don't care about because I'm just not into that genre. I still respect the players who do love it, but it's just not for me. I might try it again in the future. So, what finally brought me to this game was I didn't like the meta that the game meta for SWTOR was changing to a style that I was not excited for anymore. And I felt like they weren't taking the player concerns seriously. A lot of players that I talked to ended up stopped playing as well. So I've been on a hunt looking for a new MMO. As you know, we did Lost Ark when that first came out. I have since stopped playing it for reasons we don't need to get into right now. I also tried Final Fantasy, which is another one we'll do a topic on in the future. But it just nothing was really like sticking enough, like really capturing me and getting my interest. I tried Guild Wars 2 a while ago. I started playing as a species called the Norn, which is kind of a humanoid species that are shapeshifters, and I played the class known as the Ranger, and it didn't really capture me quite right away at the time. So I went, back to trying to play other games, playing Final Fantasy, keeping up with the latest Star Trek events that are going on, and finally, just recently, I actually think, a couple weeks ago now, finally gave this game another chance. I sat down and I was like, alright, I'm going to give this one a fair shake. I made a human thief, which I don't have any footage of right now. Actually, what you're seeing is my, they're called the Char. They're kind of a hybrid sort of mix between, I would say, tigers and wolves. A very cool species. And I really like that they're not humanoid in the sense that, yes, they walk on 2 feet. They can walk on 2 feet, as you can see in the footage. But they're not like the Caitians or the Cathar. The Caitians from Star Trek are the Cathar, which is basically just humans with fur. Personally, not really my thing. I prefer like animals to be animals, and I prefer something that's a little more anatomically inspired. And oh man, you guys are wrapped into the footage right now. I love it. So I started as a human thief, and I started giving the gameplay. I just decided to really like try to get into it, and wow. Learned very quickly that there are a variety of weapons that each class can use. You can take these weapons and you can make up different combinations. So like if you have a short sword and you want to try it with a dagger, you're going to get a set of abilities that have the short sword, and then your second 2 abilities are going to be special dagger abilities. Then after that, you have each class has different other offhand weapons, or you have 2-handed weapons. One of the characters that my wife plays, the Guardian, she uses a great sword. And she's having a lot of fun with that. I think she uses that on the Guardian and the Warrior that can use the Greatsword. So I really liked playing the Thief. It was kind of a stealthier class. It kind of felt a little bit like the Assassin from SWTOR. So I got that familiarity back, so I really started getting into it. Then I decided to buy the game because I was really enjoying it, and they don't do a subscription. This is the other thing, guys. The game is 100% free. You can not spend a cent on this game and play all the content except for one class that's locked behind a paywall, and rightly so. It's a pretty badass class, which I'm about to talk about. But you don't have to spend money on anything if you don't want to. Actually, I think you can buy access to the Revenant class by grinding out stuff in game and trading it for in-game currency. But yes, I actually had a player that was kind enough to join me, one of our new subscribers to the Twitch, Sloth the Unlucky, joined our chat and then found me in game and helped me out and guided me along. So community is really cool, really strong community, friendly community to play with, which I find important in a game, especially if I'm going to play something with other players. And yeah, I could go on. I'm going to go on because I have to fill the time anyway. It's just really good. So the Revenant was my second character. I decided to roll another Norn as a Revenant. That class, I think, Carry On, you would definitely find fascinating. It's basically a ranged melee type, and it uses like shadow type plays. So what it does is, for example, one of the abilities, if you use it, you can use a big hammer with it, and one of the abilities is you can have like phantom hammers go out and attack enemies from a distance. So you can play ranged. I think just about every class is capable of being a healer. So there's no in MMO world they call it the Holy Trinity. Are you familiar with that?
Oh yes.
And what is the Holy Trinity, Carry On?
Tank, healer, and DPS.
Exactly.
Traditionally represented by a warrior, a cleric, and either a rogue or wizard, depending on the game you're playing.
Yep. None of that in here. You can play any class. Every class is capable of healing or playing a support role. Every class is capable... Well, I don't know if every class is capable of tank, but you can basically play this. This game is very sandbox in its presentation. There's lots of story to get involved in. Actually, the latest story that I'm on now, which I'll just jump ahead on the... this is a story that really caught me, was when I decided to play as what's known as the Sylvari. And I'm specifically playing the class known as the Elementalist. This class is really cool. It's basically like... Are you guys familiar with Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Mm-hmm.
Very much so.
This class is basically an avatar. You have fire abilities that you can cycle through. You have water, and you have earth. And they call it air, but it's mostly lightning. So, you know, but what's really cool about it is I basically have the option to where I can throw rocks at people, or I can throw lightning. So, going back to SWTOR for a second, it's basically like playing Star Wars: The Old Republic, the Jedi Sage and the Sith Sorcerer combined into one class, and I can switch between the different playstyles. So not only do I have a bunch of different weapon combinations with this class, I also have being able to switch between the 4 elements. So, yeah, very cool class. There's 9 classes in total. There's your warrior, your guardian, which is kind of more your DPS. The ranger, which is kind of ranged by default, but you can also train animals. Actually, what you're seeing here is Sloth the Unlucky. They were demonstrating some of their emote abilities. And then the Sylvari monk right there. Really fascinating history, really fascinating lore. The Char, going back to the Char for a second. What really hooked me with their story is their primary adversary, their rival, is a bunch of human ghosts. So that's like their main bad guy. It's a bunch of ghosts that actually, in the past lore, took control of the Char home city. And the Char obviously took it back, but the ghosts are still trying to fight it. But this is what's really cool, is that a majority of the Char don't hold it against the actual humans in the game. They actually are able to make that distinction between real life humans and ghost humans. And there's obviously factions of the chart there that you can see me using some of the lightning. This particular build out is with a weapon called the Scepter and a Focus Scepter and Dagger. I'm using a Dagger as my offhand. So yeah, lots of fun to just sit there and zap, and then yeah, I turn myself into a ball of lightning and throw myself at them. The animations for the fights and for the abilities are, and then yes, I casted a lightning storm. Again, it's free. I can't emphasize enough. Absolutely check it out. Totally worth the time. Totally. I think I've found my Star Wars: The Old Republic replacement at this point, because there is so much to explore, and the map is huge, massive areas. Everyone gets their own starting area, and you can go and visit the different races' worlds. There's a lot of things that this game is doing right narratively that I absolutely love. There's a lot of things that this game is doing gameplay-wise that I really love. All the mounts fly, so even if you get like a raptor, you can fly it around. That I won't get till, I think they said level 50? Or I could be getting that confused with Final Fantasy. Either way, I'm looking forward to getting into the flying aspect. I just got to get a character to max level. Highest character I have is level 24. Because for some reason, I'm just looking at the different classes, and I'm like, you know what, I want to try that. And that's the whole reason I started this Sylvari character, was I was like, oh, an elementalist. So I'm basically playing the avatar. Now, the only downside to this particular class is it is considered a glass cannon. So definitely I got to get used to maneuvering around. I got to make sure I'm not getting swarmed or swamped, because it is... I don't think I've actually perma-died with this character yet. Oh, wait, I did once when I fell off. This is the other thing, too. When you lose health, you don't die right away. You actually have, like, a fighting chance to actually keep fighting while you're mostly incapacitated. And you can either get revived by a teammate, or a teammate can come help you, and you rally and you get your strength back. And then this part coming up right here, they have all these different vistas that you can check out in every single map. And it just, quick little cut scene to show you and I really appreciate this, because it really helps put focus on the artist's work. The people who did the world building. And this is, keep in mind, these graphics that I'm in, I haven't even gotten to the newer game stuff. This is all from 2012. And I'm blown away by how well this all looks for being 10 years old. Could use a facelift, sure, but I think it holds up pretty well. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it looks solid still.
Yeah, it's giving me pretty heavy Spyro vibes in terms of the look, but the feel it definitely looks like a SWOTOR in terms of feel.
Yeah, so the nice thing about it is it doesn't play like SWOTOR either. I'm surprised. I don't think this game has controller support, if I'm remembering correctly. It should, but it's very easy. It's a lot. So instead of like with SWOTOR where you have like 20 power bars, this one you only have the one. So you only have like 5 active abilities at a time. And when you switch weapons, like I said, those active abilities change. And so it's really awesome in that regard, because like I said, you can come up with a different combination. You can come up with different combinations of weapons, so you're not just stuck to like one weapon type. Your class, each class I think has like how many different combinations? 12 combinations of weapons that you can use. Yeah. The Elementalist has the least amount of weapon combos, but that's because with this class, the weapons are kind of more of a placeholder for your abilities. They're not really actually meant to be used, whereas the other classes do utilize all the weapons as part of their combat style. So there's a variety of combat styles, so you can try, like, if you pick a class and you don't like the default weapons that you start with, you can throughout the game, as you go through all these tasks, you can either find weapons in the game, you can talk to merchants, and you can see what weapons your class is able to use, and then you can do all different combinations of them. What's cool is every class except the Elementalist has hot swapping. So if you're playing a class and you don't like the weapons that you're using, or you're getting bored, you can switch to a different weapon set. And so that's, Go ahead with that comment, John. John, you can go ahead and shout out comments at any time. For some reason, it dropped mine.
Oh yeah, no worries. Slot the Unlucky, been lurking the whole time. Thought I'd say hi. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Welcome back, Sloth. I did appreciate your guidance and some of your insight. And yes, feel free to correct me on any information in the comments. We try to keep as active during the show as we can. And, you know, as we get more people into the discussion, that's something we'll also have to balance. So, yeah, we appreciate you dropping by again.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, and actually that was Sloth gliding in right there. So yeah, they even have like a glider that you can glide around on. I haven't gotten that yet. Like I said, I keep hitting like level 23, 24, and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna go try this class. And I mean, like I said, there's 9 classes, not just the stuff that's race specific. The 4 different races and 9 classes. I mean, there's any combination of stuff. I think Sloth even said that they have 11 characters that they cycle through, and I'm like, of course. I mean, that makes sense. And it's extremely alt friendly, and I would even say and by alt I mean alternate character. It's not just alternate character friendly; it's alternate character encouraged. All of your money is pooled in the same bank, so all the money that you get on your characters is all in the same. So whatever money you earn, it's across the entire account. Every character pools from it. Your bank is across the account. You don't need a special account bank. It's all automatically. You go to the bank. That's account-wide bank. So lots of quality of life aspects that really just make this a lot of fun to just play. I mean, I'm looking forward to getting into the PvP because when I played SWTOR, I was huge into the PvP. And I miss playing that, and I really want to get back into it to PvP because I do like that competitive stuff. I mean, that's the other reason I brought up the sports documentary was because I do like I said, there is a such thing as healthy competition, and I do like participating in it. Right now, I'm riding one of the newest mounts that they released with their latest expansion. It's a giant turtle, and you have a second seat that any player can jump in at any time, and they can basically use these cannons, as you see.
That is hilarious.
Nice.
I love that it's a turtle with rocket jets.
And yeah, so the Elementalist, Sloth clarified that the Elementalist can change weapons out of combat. But that's kind of like the balancing limitation. So it's where you can swap weapons with all the other classes because they're different. And the playstyle diversity is just incredible. I mean, there's so much, and I don't even know, like, Sloth would be able to shed some light on this. I don't even know if they're that concerned with balancing in the sense, like, yes, they want to try and make it fair for everybody, but my issue with SWTOR was when I first started playing, there was a clear, like, difference of abilities and hybrid classes that you could set yourself up for. Then they went away from that and they went back to the Holy Trinity. So even regardless of if you were a heavy armor healer or a light armor healer, your heals were good, which I did not like. I hated that they did that. This game, because for one, they ignore the Holy Trinity, they seem to be more interested on just the functionality of balance and letting the abilities just kind of work for themselves, so to speak. So Sloth says Guild Wars 2 is not a pay-to-win. You can pay for cosmetics, boosters, or not because you can earn in-game currency to transfer it to gems and vice versa. Yes, exactly what I was saying earlier. You can play this game for free, all 80 levels, without paying a cent. Star Trek Online has the similar business model. I think it's great because the thing is, your dedicated players are always going to be in these types of games. And that's what makes them great, is you will always have a player base. There will always be a player base for Star Trek Online, no matter what they do. I mean, I'm one of them. I'm a lifetime player for that game. I've spent a lot of money on that game, but I'm okay with that. I'm not bothered by other people that don't spend any money, because it gives an opportunity for other players to experience this game who might be in a financial situation where they can't afford to spend, $30 or $40 a month or, $15 a month on a subscription. Instead, they get full access, and They seem to have all the bots under control. I don't know what they're doing for that, but I have not seen a lot of chat spamming, if any at all, now that I think about it. So it's a very nice game for that regard. So you don't have to spend any money on it. I bought it because I wanted to, because I like the product. I was happy to support it that way and actually, get to own a piece of the game. The soundtrack is phenomenal. Corion, you brought up soundtrack earlier in the show being an important part of a game. This game nails it. There's different soundtracks for all the different regions and different races. Sloth says, the community is very helpful, friendly. There's always people that will help as much as they can. Yes, including people like Sloth, who is one of those types of players that does go out of their way to help other people, and I do appreciate players that do that. I don't care what the game is. The best way to build a good community is to be willing to set aside that time to help newer players. And Star Trek has a lot of that community element too.
That sounds definitely like one of the things that I always enjoy about these bigger MMO games is like coming in late, you don't know anything, and when the community is willing to help the new people for whatever reason, like different games like World of War or World of Warcraft, they've given out extra XP for helping out new people. Final Fantasy, I think, did the same thing. And if that's even a thing here in Guild Wars, it's an awesome thing that's acknowledging that the best way to get new long-term players is if the old long-term players want to have an incentive to help them. That's really cool. This game either incentivizes it or curates it inadvertently without incentivizing it, which is it's pretty interesting. It definitely looks like a very fun game. Was that, Karen?
Yeah, I was going to say City of Heroes actually offered unique titles and badges to individuals that helped out new players to the game.
That's such a great way, because like people love recognition for their efforts, even if it only comes in terms of a title or a banner change. It's just like, if you're gonna put that kind of effort into being a, what's the word when you people that come to orientation, you're gonna be somebody who's gonna give an orientation, like, and the game recognizes how often you do that. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, City of Heroes actually had a really cool system for that. If you leveled, went to a level, grouped with somebody who was lower level than you, you could either artificially inflate their level to yours for the fight, so they got to experience your quest line, or you could artificially deflate to theirs and help them out with whatever task.
Yeah,
Diablo 3 had something like that.
Yeah, same thing with this game. Sloth in the chat, I help because New Player in Guild Wars 2 is one of my favorite games, and I know what it's like to start in an unfamiliar game that's so large. Well, I'll say this, Sloth, the developers really did a great job of not making this game feel too overwhelming. I think they do a great job of slow dripping you into the environment. However, that said, you're right. This is still an MMO. It can still feel like, especially if you go watch a Let's Play video and someone's max level and they're doing all this crazy stuff. I mean, that can feel a little overwhelming. I've shown people Star Trek Online, and a lot of times they do get intimidated by my giant power tray. An MMO is kind of like a second job sometimes, a fun second job, but it can be a commitment. This day and age, it's not as rigorous a commitment as it used to be. I think it's definitely gotten a little better overall because the different games are making it easier. And like I said, this game is not that hard to get into. I really am enjoying my Sylvari story right now, and I'm just enjoying the gameplay and all the aspects. And then I actually summoned and it's called an air elemental, but that thing's clearly a lightning scorpion. So
pretty hard to show air.
I know, that's why. So for this character, you have to pick which element means the most to you, or which one you follow the most, right? And
you chose Aang. You chose Avatar Aang.
I chose fire.
Oh, you did?
Because I thought that fire was going to have lightning, because that's what it is in the Avatar. And then I found out air has all the lightning. So I was like, alright, yeah, it is. But then I realized you're right. Whereas on Avatar, it's easy to show those air powers in the cartoon. I can see from a development perspective, okay, trying to do air as a power, they're kind of limited between like tornadoes and force air blasts, and so they decided to make lightning part of it, which makes sense from a scientific perspective. I mean lightning is kind of more of an air element, so to speak. That's where it comes from. So yes, carry on. I believe you'd probably be a little bit of an expert in that.
Well, I mean, I would say that typically in classical setups, you would find lightning associated with air.
Oh, okay.
Again, that's because it's more of a classical setup, but then you can also look at it from an energy perspective, which would be associated with fire. So
Right.
it's a delicate dance. It depends on really which mythological system you're basing your current take on a magical system on, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely going to be playing this game more. I don't know how often we'll feature it on the show, but it's captured my interest. It's done a great job of that, and they recently came out. You can check the trailers for the newest End of Dragons expansion that just came out. I mean, there's much newer graphics to appreciate in that new expansion that I'm working towards. Maybe this time I can finally get a character to level 30 before pursuing an alt. But that's the other thing too, from what I understand from some of the other players I've talked to as well, is that alt progression is actually very easy once you have a character at max level, because then you have access to all your mounts and you can basically go through stuff a lot faster. So it's definitely up there. I had a friend of mine tell me about this game back in 2012, and he talked about how great it was, and I just wasn't that interested. I had just gotten into SWTOR, so I was like, whatever. Everything he said back then is true to this point. He was right about everything. This game clearly, like Eve, seems to stick to its formula. It's not trying to change a bunch of stuff to be more attractive. It's just a game that's awesome and fun to play. So I don't know if it has an Apple version, but I would definitely recommend this to anyone. Very casual friendly. I mean, I don't feel like I have to go in and be the greatest player ever to properly enjoy this game. I do feel like I am a more casual gamer. I do get competitive with PvP, but I haven't played any tournaments or anything like that. So I do think that, and that's just it, a majority of gamers really are casual. Some people like to think they're not. Whatever. Gaming is supposed to be, games are, sorry, it's a word I'm trying to think of. The whole point that games were made in the first place starts with an F. Fun! Games are supposed to be fun. And this game is a lot of fun. Yes, they can be challenging. Yes, they can do, you can tell a lot of good stories. I'm not saying that they, at the core, do you get something out of a game? That's what's important to me, and that's what I think should be important to any game developer is, what's the point of your game? Why am I playing it? Why should I play it? Well, I think I just took like a whole 30 minutes so far to explain why I think you should play Guild Wars 2. So any questions, guys, after watching this that you might have for me, or maybe Sloth if they're still in the chat? Oh, Sloth actually said something. The Elemental, I feel, is underappreciated, but I use mine a lot. There is a website called Meta Battle for builds true, but I make my own builds from scratch. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, Sloth. I like to figure out a game on my own. But if I feel I need a performance change, then I'll consult an expert. Anyway, carry on. Sorry, you had something.
Yeah, I guess my question is for Sloth. Sloth, you gonna keep watching after PD here? Keep him out of trouble?
Are you going to protect our young warrior on his maiden voyage through your world? It sounds pretty horrific with all these wars started by guilds.
Yes.
Well,
indeed.
and that's apparently one of the other aspects. I guess there's like a big team battle thing with the game's title, the Guild Wars. That is apparently a lot of fun. And I gotta really try the PvP. I haven't done the PvP just yet because it's like I'm trying to be less egotistical as a person, but you know, I haven't played PvP in a while, and when you're running around doing story stuff, annihilating everything, being the big badass, it's like a bit of a slap back in the face when you jump in PvP and you're like, all right, I'm not as good as I thought. But I'm gonna do it for probably. I might even jump into some tonight.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, enjoy, dude.
Sloth did reply, when I can, yeah, but if I'm multitasking, I'll pop the page open and no promises, because I can barely keep out of trouble myself. That's all right, Sloth. I appreciate the effort either way. Like I said, it was very, very cool of you. Oh yeah, this is an outfit. So this is the other thing too. Sloth put their outfit in the chat, and I was able to click on it, and it automatically pulled up this preview of what it would look like on my character.
That's
so
pretty
that's
cool.
Again, it's the convenience of this game and the quality of life. Like, I can't talk this game up enough. I could still go on. Like I said, a whole nother show.
How about transmog? That's been something you've talked a lot about.
Transmog is so the best customization, character customization, still in my opinion, is Star Trek Online. Because you basically get access to a variety of outfits and colors that you can use. And yes, I'm gonna have to do an actual STO feature on this show at some point. But as far as custom goes, Star Trek is still the best. This one is definitely up there. I don't know. I would say it's better than SWTOR because you do have, when you pull up your character sheet and you go in and you change your color dyes. First of all, if you get a dye in the game on any character, it's unlocked across the account, and you can basically change the color of each piece of clothing to whatever you want, or whatever you have available, but to whatever you want. So it's kind of like it's got SWTOR beat on that. The only thing it's not quite got it beat on, at least yet, is some of the clothing customization options seem fairly limited, but I don't know. I'm not at endgame yet. I can't really speak to... I would say that as far as early game transmog goes, yes. You can still kind of get the look that you want, and you're going to get different clothing throughout that you get to keep. You get to actually unlock the skins, so you don't actually have to hold on to them physically. They're unlocked, so when you go into what's called the wardrobe, you can select whatever clothing you want. Now, to change the clothing, you do have to use a currency for each piece of gear, and you can get those for free. So far, the way that I've earned the 2 that I have now is by completely exploring a map. So doing all my vistas, checking out all the points of interest, getting all the teleporters, and basically that's how you get your transmog currency. And Sloth says, yeah, you can use dyes and transmog in Guild Wars 2 as well. Yes. So it does have a transmog system, but it does seem to be, and I think you can purchase these things. So if you want like a bunch of outfits without having to put in the effort, there's ways. Like we both said, it's pay for convenience, not really pay to win. It's not a subscription-based game, so you can just play it whenever and however. Yeah, there's even a character called a Mesmer, which is kind of like a magician, from what I understand. I'm not too familiar with that class. And then there's Necromancer, which Sloth was playing earlier in the stream. You conjure up and summon a bunch of downed adversaries. Let's see. There's the thief. The one I haven't really touched that I've heard a lot can be a lot of fun is the engineer. You're mostly working with tools and machines with that one. And yeah, I think I hit all the classes.
Cool.
So yeah, great game all around. Currently a 7 out of 7 for me. Would absolutely recommend at least trying once. Sloth says there are millions of selections of changing them to your like. Yes. So you get all these different clothings throughout, and like I said, you unlock the skins, and it's got a lot of variety. Anything else on your mind? I mean, you guys seem to be really glued to the stream.
I was just noticing Slot the Unlucky responded again. For example, I have well over 50 helmet skins unlocked thus far. Keep in mind that's just for the helmet alone. Pretty dope.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, Star Trek has a wide variety as well. That's what I like. That's what I look for in an MMO. I really am, because especially in the Western market, a lot of people are individualists, and so they want that ability to properly express themselves. And so, I mean, there's some people that I met playing Star Trek that only played for the clothing, and I wouldn't be surprised if I encountered a player in Guild Wars that was like, yeah, I don't care about the lore or the powers or anything. I just like to look fabulous, which cool. I mean, whatever keeps you interested.
That's it.
Turn, you had something to say?
No, I'm good, man.
Well, in that case, I think let's take this time to address tomorrow. May the 4th be with you. And our State of the Star Wars address.
Tomorrow we have a special guest joining us. You might have seen him on with other various pop culture powerhouses out there on the YouTube and on the Twitch. Mexican Iron Man will be joining us tomorrow. We'll be joining our little crew of 3. We will have 4. And we are going to discuss the first couple hours. We'll mostly be discussing the original 6 Star Wars movies and deciding which is the best. Well, at least if we can come to a consensus of which is the best. Not to be confused with your favorite, but we will discuss and argue about that all day tomorrow. And then after we do our formal discussion, and if we do come to a consensus or not, we will be open season everything Star Wars. The Disney Wars movies, Rebels.
We've seen it where we want it to go, where we hope it will go, and where we think it will go.
Yep. Mandalorian, Clone Wars, all of it. All Star Wars, everything is on. If you want to get on a tirade about the extended universe, talk about your favorite Star Wars book that's no longer canon according to Disney, that'll be the time to rant and rave. And we're not even, I was hoping a couple more people would show up, but it's okay. We'll still have a fun, lively, unmoderated discussion amongst ourselves, and hopefully we won't lose any friends in the process. But,
and there's also something else that might happen. I might have to formally challenge Mexican Iron Man to a lightsaber duel.
An over-stream lightsaber duel. I gotta find mine. I got mine around somewhere.
Gonna change the game.
Yeah, but I might actually have to bust my lightsaber out tomorrow, and I actually mean.
There we go.
Not to be confused with other euphemisms. So yes, we will be having a long Star Wars discussion.
Comments
tomorrow.
Encouraged.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
We want to answer and
Sloth,
ask questions.
if you have Star Wars friends or you're into Star Wars, please come and enjoy the discussion. We will try to make everybody a part of it. We might even reach out and give the opportunity for any members of the audience to possibly join the stream and hot swap them in. But we'll see. Still got some particulars to work out with that, but I'm looking forward to it. It's our big May the 4th special edition stream. And like I said, no real determined time. So even if you miss, it'll be starting at our regular show time of 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, and we'll be going for as long as we feel like it, and as long as the discussion is lively and interesting, and everyone's sharing their theories, their personal canons, their what they love and don't love about Star Wars. All discussion about Star Wars is up for discussion and encouraged.
I've been prepping.
Oh.
I decided to watch the 3 trilogies. I still, even though I know that the newest trilogy is the worst trilogy, I respect that it is technically IP canon.
Yeah, well,
not in any way of a good way.
I thought one of my friends from Super Gamecraft was going to join, but I'll have to double check with him and follow up with him on that. But
heck yeah. But so I approached this new rewatch in anticipation. I'm watching the first episode of each trilogy, then the second episode, and then the third, and comparing and contrasting. And
Should I have the medical team ready for the third episode of the Disney sequels?
I don't get why
take care
that's
of
the
you.
one that gets the most hate. The second one of the Disney sequels
It is worse.
ultimately the worst. The third one was recovering from that and also rolling down a bigger, steeper hill. But I mean, I was rewatching just the difference between the universe that George Lucas set up in the first movie, A New Hope. He changed a lot of the premises. Like, it really seemed like Obi-Wan and Anakin were both from Tatooine, and they both joined and ditched Tatooine together, only for Obi-Wan to come back to Tatooine and start his own farm, kind of like old World War II Americans did. But then the second one the second first movie, Phantom Menace, really felt like he was creating this whole world of basically like witches across the universe that were their own independent covens of the council, and the Grand Council was the one located in Coruscant, and it really feels like the Grand Council was the only ones tricked by the dark side. And we would have, I really feel like he set it up that the other Jedi and the other covens would have had more of a chance to fight. And I didn't notice that until really trying to draw the differences between the two stories. Like, Darth Vader is very much Merlin in his darkest form in A New Hope. And the way that he guides over the council, they're like, oh, we've got this Death Star, and he's like, it's still no power for the Force. And everyone's like, okay, chill your witch powers.
And that's going to conclude our little teaser into tomorrow's more in-depth discussion. And Sloth says that they like the Star Wars universe. Well, come on down and have some fun, because we're gonna discuss. I'd just like to say real quick to any of our listeners listening to the podcast, you can just join our discussion live every Tuesday at 6:30 or 6:30 Mountain Time.
5:30 Pacific.
I'm Peter York with the Ryder Brothers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Night, everybody.